multifaceted doves, and how it's moving and circling today. The Spirit's on the move. What a nice thought. As a Christian, I am simply trying to live the Jesus way. I mean, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Because I'm convinced that being generous is a better way to live. I'm convinced that forgiving people and not carrying around a lot of anger and bitterness is a better way to live. I'm just trying to follow the Jesus way because I believe he is the big picture, the eternal icon of the mind and the heart and the face of God. I like how Paul McCartney puts it, though tomorrow may rain, I'll follow the sun. I didn't say I sounded like him, I said I like the way he put it. A story that I've told before, which has never stopped me from telling it again, by the way, was when I went to seminary, and one of the questions on the university application was, are you a follower or a leader? And I put down a follower. And later the dean told me that I would fit in really well with this class because it consisted of 20 leaders and 1 follower, you. I'm happy to be a follower. Now, C.S. Lewis gave us this wonderful metaphor I want to share with you about following and about knowing the universal Christ. He wrote, I believe in God as I believe the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. My relationship to God is often like that. Yes, I get those pure, rare moments when I feel God, but most often, God speaks and moves through other ways. Scripture, nature, a child, a garden, an idea, other people, music, or a song, the Eucharist, fireflies on a warm summer night, or the glistening of the sunlight on the lake. Why, sometimes God can even speak to you through a sermon. I love the way St. Augustine put it. Why did I wait, he wrote. Too late have I loved you, O beauty so ancient and so new. You see, early in his life, he allowed beautiful things to seduce him away from God, their maker. And later he wrote, in those fair things, now I trace the sunbeam back to its source. What a beautiful way to put that. Isn't that spirituality and the goal of the contemplative life? Seeing the sacred all around us and tracing the sunbeams back to their source. Now, in our gospel, Jesus, I want to put it in context for you. Jesus has set his face toward Jerusalem. He is committed to finishing the ministry he came to earth. And he talks with 3 would-be followers. So keep in mind that Jesus walks the talk. Now I picture them on this dusty road with the great rabbi and a great crowd, enthusiastic admirers, you might say, and Jesus is basically saying to them, do you want to follow the crowd or do you want to follow me? To the first guy, Jesus said, I want to follow you, but I know it means I have to rough it. Jesus says, yes, we're not staying in the best hotels, we're sleeping under the stars. We won't be chatting theology at Starbucks, but making coffee over the campfire on the way to where God calls us to go. So don't follow me so you can be blessed or get comfortable or put a magnetic fish on your car. Christianity is more than a bumper sticker. It's not a club, it's a commitment. It's costly, not cozy. I'm not looking for fans, Jesus says, but followers. Dr. Gary was our resident theologian, our theology professor in seminary. He was much smarter than all of us put together in class. He had dark curly hair. He was from Newfoundland. He had dark curly hair, and he was tall. He had this bulging forehead that you know a lot of gears were moving at the time. And he had alert eyes, And he had this long, curly, black pirate's beard. And he used to refer to his students as the beardless youth, which annoyed many of the women in class, by the way. And he was a bit intimidating. Gary spoke 4 languages that I knew of, had published many philosophical papers in Egghead magazine, and I never dared to get into an argument with Gary because he's such an intellectual. I'm sure he'd probably prove I don't exist. That's Gary. And he was a grounded Christian, which was very encouraging to me. And he would always say, everybody is following someone. Everybody has faith in something. And I found that to be true. Now in the gospel, when Jesus asks another person to follow him, the guy gets a bit dramatic. Come on, can't I say goodbye to my family first? The guy says. Do I have to leave my grandparents? Do I have to leave my grandma, aka Granny, Nana, Meemaw, Mimi, and Mau Mau? In answering, Jesus gave us the analogy of plowing a field, the old-fashioned way, a horse and a plow. Instead of doing his job, the guy kept looking back. And what happened? He began to dig crooked furrows. And I think about riding a bike, a two-wheeler bike, and you push off, and you begin to do really well, you're going forward and everything's looking good, but then you look backwards. You look backwards, and then you begin to wobble. Even if you've had experience, I know this, you begin to lose balance and you veer off the sidewalk. Then you run right into the Welcome to Lexington's Industrial Park sign. True story. In front of about, 50 cars or so. I'm sure I was going to make the front page. New minister runs into park sign. Details at 11. For this guy in the gospel, Jesus wasn't his top priority. There's something else that has his attention. He keeps looking back, not forward. And I know people who are stuck looking back. I'm sure you know people like that too, who can never advance because the past has such a hold, such a grip on them, like chains, and they tend to wallow in self-pity. Yes, you may have had a really bad hurt. Yes, you may have a history of abuse or neglect or fallen victim to some bad people. And it's really awful and it's really difficult to overcome, but it's not who you are. You are not your ego. You are not a victim. You are not your body. You are not your past. You are not alone. You are divine and beautiful and loved and awake and connected to the all-healing, all-compassionate, all-encompassing Spirit who is in all things. Now, some get upset with the way things are in the world, and they can't look forward. All the bad news and the problems funneled into our minds and our eyes, that they forget the way things could be if they truly tried to live the Jesus way. And they're not really a lot of fun to be around. It's like hanging out with Eeyore. It seems a lot of people want to change the world, but they don't want to change themselves. Rather than sit around complaining, I'm going to do what I can with what I've got to whomever the Lord puts in my path. I'm joining the Lord's army, the army of good. I may not be able to bend on one knee and tell a poor child in Kenya that they are loved and provide some clothes for him or her, but I can help a child in Coldwater. I may not be able to clean up the Pacific Ocean, but I can help clean up the St. Joseph River. I may not be able to hand a meal to a family in India, but I can volunteer at the Branch County Food Pantry. I may not be able to stop the fighting in Syria or on Capitol Hill, but I can model peace and harmony wherever I go, to whomever I see. Join the Lord's army and take it local. Finally, Jesus talks to a third guy. He offered the same two-word invitation that Jesus offered to Matthew and Peter and James and John. He said, "Follow me." Had that man agreed to follow Jesus, then today we'd be talking about the 13 disciples. He'd probably have a gospel named after him, the gospel according to Ralph. You never know. We don't, but we don't because he answers, let me first bury my father, which is actually better translated, now isn't a good time. I don't think the guy's dad was dying at all. He probably didn't even have a head cold. I think it was an excuse. Otherwise, Jesus wouldn't have answered so harshly. He probably saw Jesus coming down the road. He grabbed his cell phone. He went to excuses.com. Yes, it does exist. And he got a whole bunch of reasons. My dog ate it. My alarm didn't go off. I can't follow you. I have temporary amnesia. My favorite excuse, by the way, came from my friend Betty, the matriarch of our last parish, the church lady, 91 years young, got pulled over for speeding, which is funny in itself. The cop said, okay, lady, where's the fire? And she said, why, officer, it's in your eyes. I don't know if he was charmed or creeped out, but he let her go. Jesus said to the guy's excuse, let the dead bury their dead. Now is the time for you to follow me. Your business is life, not death. And life is urgently calling you forward. I am the life. And isn't that our goal? To live life fully alive? I want to end with that other story that I've told, but hasn't stopped me anyway, of the high school class and the essay that the teacher asked the students to do toward the end of the day. They were asked to answer one question: what do you want to be when you're an adult? When the class ended, she's collecting the papers and she's glancing at them, sifting through them, and as the kids are leaving, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a rock star, all good things. But one paper just simply said, when I am an adult, I want to be happy. She stopped the student at the door. Hey, I think you've misunderstood the question. And the precocious student respectfully replied, ma'am, I think you've misunderstood life. Jesus said, don't keep hitting the snooze button. Don't sleep through life. Don't forget what you're looking for. Follow me. And when you find me, you find life, which should take priority over everything else. I mean, what's more important than life? Amen.